Okay, so we're back for the Q&A, inshallah. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
So basically, this is more for like wudu or like somebody who like works in dirt pretty much.
Okay.
So basically, I finished working on a car today, and I also did a little bit of paint in the house.
Okay.
So with that in mind, my hands are still, as you can see, a little bit like it's kind of hard to tell now because I washed it so many times.
Yeah.
But during the time for my wudu when I had to pray,
Yeah.
I maybe washed my hands like 10, 15 times, and
Yeah.
there was still a little bit of dirt and
Okay.
paint residue. Would that like
Okay.
invalidate the wudu then pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a barrier, then on your skin and the water doesn't get there, then that's going to prevent you from having a complete wudu. But as long as you scraped it as much as you can and you can't do any more, then you've done your best and you're okay. Okay, to to complete your wudu and to pray, inshallah. But you have to do your utmost. Like, how when you get little bits of paint here, and next time just wear gloves.
I forgot my gloves. That's the problem this time. But inshallah, next time.
Right? Yeah, and another way, actually, also just a little hint I got from a friend who's a painter. He said just use oil. He said use like vegetable oil or something like that, and that'll wash it right off. Even those, I know some brothers who actually lay laminate and they sometimes use glue for the vinyl. That stuff gets all over them. They wash it off with oil, just vegetable oil. Yeah, but that can cause cancer. So plus you'll smell like gasoline. Yeah.
So, back to when we were speaking about wine.
Yes.
About other drugs such as nicotine, marijuana, and mushrooms.
Yeah.
I know God has put them onto this earth, or I'm not sure for what purpose.
Yeah.
I know that humans that like inject this.
Yeah.
Is it wrong for them to do this?
Yeah.
Is it right? Does it really matter?
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good question. So we spoke about wine and we spoke about alcohol, and we didn't mention other intoxicants such as marijuana, mushrooms, whatever other intoxicant, just fill in the blank. So intoxicants are haram to consume in Islam, period. Any intoxicant, okay? Now, why were they created? Is it bad that God created? No, of course not. We said everything has a purpose. A lot of these are used also for medicine, by the way, right? In certain amounts. So while marijuana is considered to be an intoxicant and it's haram to use, right? I do know that they do use it for cancer patients when morphine isn't working anymore. Okay? And it's okay to use it for that purpose. Okay? But otherwise, just for entertainment, no, it's haram to use. Alcohol, for example, there are some medications that you can't. For example, a brother comes to me one day, he says, Sheikhna, my doctor prescribed medication for me, but it has alcohol in it. Can I consume it? I said, if there is a replacement for it, if there's another medication that you can take other than this one, then you are to take that one. You can't take the one with alcohol. And then if there is alcohol in it, you have to see what is the percentage of alcohol. Because you might say, well, no, I asked the doctor said this is the only thing that's available. Okay? So if he says this is the only thing that's available, and if you don't take it, you're going to be harmed, then you're okay to take it. But also, if there's the amount of alcohol in it is so negligible, like it's 0.0000 something, then in that case, the Maraja say it's okay for you to use, okay, because it's such a negligible amount that it doesn't cause what we call neshwa. Neshwa is that high feeling, that you get. That's not even intoxication, total intoxication. It's just that high that some people get. Like, for example, I know that one brother who lives in a dorm, he's a Muslim, he ended up moving out of the dorms because of this issue. He said that his roommate would smoke pot, okay, unfortunately. And he said that, by secondhand smoke, he gets high. He says he doesn't smoke weed. He said, but because my roommate smokes it, and I keep telling him to stop it, he says, I can't help it. I end up breathing it in, so what do? I said, move out. Obviously, you're not allowed to be intoxicated that way. And then there are mushrooms that are healthy mushrooms. Like lion's mane, for example, is supposed to be good for your brain, for your neuronal pathways. There's other types of mushrooms that are healthy for you, okay? Why search out the mushrooms that are intoxicating and cause you to hallucinate and are, psychedelic mushrooms? Because those are haram to use. Those have their own purpose in nature, okay? And their purpose is not to consume. It's like, for example, there are poisonous mushrooms and then there are non-poisonous mushrooms. There are mushrooms that are there that provide a good protein source for you, right? Especially for those that work out, who don't want to eat meat. Like mushrooms are a high source of protein, so you can replace. And a lot of vegans I know, they eat mushrooms, not the intoxicant or the psychedelic type, right? They eat those mushrooms instead of the protein, right? So this has a purpose, and this has a purpose. One is to eat. The other one is probably has some sort of environmental, ecological purpose. Maybe I don't know what that is, or maybe because I know, for example, some pharmaceuticals that are made, they're made from some of these types of mushrooms in small, minute amounts. They can actually have medicinal purposes. Okay, yeah.
I have one more question. How come, this is a little bit off topic, but how come a leaf and a tree, how are they so similar to the human's nerve system? Is there a reason for their similarity? Because I've seen studies how the tree's roots look just compared to our nerve system, they just look identical.
I don't know about identical, but I understand what you're saying. And for example, if you look at our nervous system, you look at our cardiac system, our veins and our arteries, even our lymphatic system, parasympathetic and sympathetic. It's everything. There's the base that we have, and then everything basically branches out, similar to a tree, right? And this is just the quote unquote organic way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, that this is the perfection of how He creates. Remember what we said the other day when we said, if anything, this is a sign that the creator or the programmer is one. Right? Okay. Listen, if it works, then, and you can implement it in different places, then it just makes sense to do so. Like a good programmer would do that for you, and a good engineer at the end of the road, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate engineer, right? So if this is what is needed here, and because look at what's being delivered. With plants, what's being delivered is water and nutrients. What's being delivered within our bodies? Water, nutrients, same thing, right? Okay, what does the plant need to produce? Energy, right? The plant has mitochondria, just like we have mitochondria in our cells, where energy is produced, right? But a plant has chloroplasts. We don't have chloroplasts. So Allah gives the plant something that it needs, to photosynthesize. It's called photosynthesis, right? To produce energy and to produce oxygen, so that it can then give us oxygen to be able to breathe, right? So yeah, it's just the how Allah creates, subhanallah. Yeah. Yes.
I'm gonna ask some personal question that nobody mentioned this.
Okay.
If I sleep as a young person
Mhm.
and I dream that I'm having sexual contacts,
Okay.
and I wake up with semen.
Yeah. So a wet dream.
Yes.
That's basically what it's called.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In this case,
Yeah.
how to clean my clothes?
Yeah.
And what is dirty about? What is the najis touch with this?
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Now we mentioned yesterday. Was it yesterday? We mentioned the 10 najasat, right? The 10 impurities, right? So semen, for example. First of all, of course, that person would be in a state of spiritual impurity, so they have to do ghusl al-janaba. And as we mentioned between the two prayers when we were praying, that ghusl al-janaba is basically something that is required. It's an obligation that one does when they do release semen. Okay, so once the semen is released, whether it's through a wet dream or whatever else, of course, masturbation is considered to be haram, so it's prohibited to do. Right? So just so that a lot of youth, they don't know this. What the person is required to do is obviously, go to the bathroom, wash off that area, do what we call the kharratat al-tis', the 9 strokes, which is, we said, with the middle finger stroke from the bottom of the, or from the anus to the base of the scrotum, 3 times forward, and then the shaft from the base of the shaft to the top, right to the base of the tip, 3 times upward with the thumb and the middle finger, and then the tip with the thumb and middle finger forward also 3 times. And that will get rid of whatever extra seminal fluid is laying in there, within that area, within the urethra. Technically speaking, it's called the urethra. So once that's done, then the person is to wash the area. Of course, before that, they should urinate. So first urinate, then do that, and then go into the shower with the intention of doing ghusl al-janaba, right? Get under the water, wash your head and your neck first, move yourself away from the water or move the shower head away from you, and then start washing the rest of your body after that point. Make sure that the water touches every single part of your skin, okay? That's ghusl al-janaba. After you're done ghusl al-janaba, you're spiritually pure now. Now you can pray. Before you couldn't pray. Are you required to do wudu after you do ghusl al-janaba? No. Not unless you break your purity by, we said, number one, number two, urination, defecation, or flatulence. Okay? Releasing gas from the bottom. Okay? So otherwise, you need to do wudu in that case. Now, let's go back to the seminal fluid that's in the person's clothes after they wake up, right? So how do I purify this? Because it is considered an impurity, okay? So I can put it under water and I can rinse it until ayn al-najasa disappears, meaning the essence of the impurity disappears, is gone. Am I required to put it under a microscope and see is the najasa gone or not? No, I'm not required to do that. Same thing if I get blood, let's say I get a cut and I get blood on my clothes, I'm to wash the blood off with water, right? Okay. Now, if I see a little bit of a yellow stain there, I'm not required to put it under a microscope and search for red blood cells. I'm not required to do that. Okay. So it's enough that you tried to wash it as much as you can and it came off. The essence of the najasa came off. The redness, if it was blood, for example, the yellowness, if it was urine, for example, the discoloration, if it was feces, for example, and the semen, which is that kind of mucusy sort of, we say madda lazija, which means it's a mucusy type of liquid or gooey sort of. So once that's removed, the essence of the najasa is gone. Okay, once that's gone, that's it. You've purified that piece of clothing. Now if it's your clothes and you put it under the water, it's important that the water runs right through it and that you're squeezing it, so when you pour it on, make sure you're squeezing it so that it goes out, okay? Until you can't feel it anymore in there, okay? Again, you're not required to put it under a microscope to check if there's any seminal fluid there or not anymore after that. So if it's urine, you're required to do it twice, okay? And preferably 3 times, okay? But if it's anything other than urine, then just until the essence of the najasa is gone, which could be once even. If you put it under running water, squeeze it, get it out, squeeze it, get it out. Yeah. Yes.
So I understand that it's not right. It's best to clean yourself before prayer. I understand that.
Yeah.
But why are we referring to seminal fluid as an impurity if this is exactly what this is a particle that gives life?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So being an impurity doesn't mean that it's bad. This is a misconception a lot of people have. Like a dog is najis, right? If you touch it with wetness, your hand, let's say there's wetness on your hand and you touch it, then the najasa, your hand has become najis. But if dry on dry, here's the rule. Dry on dry, okay, is pure, one cannot deny. Okay? Jaf ala jaf, tahir bila khilaf. Okay? Right? Jaf means dry. So dry on dry is what? Is pure, one cannot deny. Okay? So just because a dog, for example, is najis, and I explained this when we were talking about the najasat yesterday, because I said a dog is najis, if you touch it with wetness, the najasa gets on your hand. This najasa can be washed off with water. Okay? It doesn't mean that animal is bad. Right? Just because the seminal fluid is impure. Okay? Doesn't mean that it's bad. Of course it's good. Right? Because you're going to use this one day, inshallah, to have children. Right? Okay? The halal way, of course. Okay? Through marriage. Right? So, but why do we say that it's impure or najis? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it's impure. So since He's the creator, and He says it's impure, and He says it causes you spiritual impurity, and you have to do a ghusl of janaba in order to purify yourself spiritually, we say we accept what Allah tells us. Why? Because Allah is the most knowledgeable. He is the creator of this machine that is the human being, right? And every single bodily fluid that is within him. And He is the one who tells you what you should be purified of and what you shouldn't be purified of. He's the one who tells you this is pure and this is impure, right? But He's not telling you this is bad. Keep that in mind. Okay, impure doesn't mean bad. Unfortunately, culturally speaking, a lot of people, they say, najis, stay away. Oh, it's a dog, it's najis, stay away. No, why? And they create fear within a person. In the Quran, the dog is very respected, right? Right? Because he protected the mu'mineen, the believers who were hiding in the cave, right? From the evil government that was trying to kill them, right? So the dog is a very loyal animal, it's a very protective animal, right? And that's why one of the reasons why we can own a dog, we can keep a dog, is if it is a guard dog. Okay. Normally, so here's the other important rule that you must know: that one cannot own something that is najis. You cannot own something that is najis. Okay. We can talk about that tomorrow. Remind me about that. I'll leave you with that to think about a little, since you were thinking about that as well. But just remember, najis does not mean bad. Okay. It just means this is the ruling for it. Okay. And if you get a najasa on it, it's very simple. Purify it with water. Yes, you're good to go. Okay. All right. Well, we're actually out of time. So keep your question till